Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our panel discussion. We're very proud to support the Billion dedication at COP28. So this panel, not without many opportunities. I head up strategy and innovation at the Brand 25, one of the Pan-African leading investment banks in the business industry. So, in my capacity in strategy and innovation, I also drive sustainable finance and sustainability. And also by virtue of my background, I also support various economic policy discussions as well in different countries. So, thank you so much for attending this panel discussion, where we aim to really discuss public-private cooperation within the just energy transition to really achieve the balance between economic and social goals. I think, as we see here in this fantastic conference like this brings together government, private sector, public sector, civil society, a lot of activists as well, policymakers, and so on. Something that we can do alone. Be it climate goals or even the balance between climate and social goals as well. So it's a very important conversation that we have to actually see how we can collaborate and partner to achieve this duality that we're experiencing. So that said, I'd like to go straight into introducing our panelists. And for the course, I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Mr. Ed Kalazik, who commenced with 40 students in April 2022. Initially, the role of pilot projects, operational readiness, and the operational readiness for Assistant Director of Projects Development, assisting in the development and execution of key projects, and recently taking on the role of Regional President in Africa in August 2023. Prior to joining Fortescue, he held senior management leadership positions at PwC, CDH Group, Heritage Safety, CDH Superannuation Fund, and more recently as CFO, then CEO of Power. And is passionate about helping reduce the impact that climate change has on the world and on economies as well. And holds a bachelor's degree in business and finance, and CA as well, and a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Thank you so much for being part of the panel. Welcome. Our second panelist, I'd like to introduce Mr. Benedict Iwanda, who is the founding and current Chief Executive Officer of the Environment Investment Fund in India. He holds a Master's in Business Development Studies from the University of Free State and Master's in Business Administration from Leicester University. He comes with years of experience in environmental, climate finance, climate fund design, structuring, social organization, project planning, management. And he successfully mobilized over 300 million USD for climate change investments from the Green Climate Fund, the agency of the Board for Development, Green Environmental Development Fund, and the Global Environmental Facility. Welcome, Mr. Benedict. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome our Honourable Minister, Honourable Tom Adwendo, who is the previous Minister of Mines and Energy, who was in his position since 2018. Previously, he was the DG of the National Planning Commissioner, Minister of Economic Planning, and also the first in Namibia to the Governor of the Bank of Namibia. He was also father of two loving daughters and a patriotic Namibian as well. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, panelists come with a wealth of experience. It's a balanced panel between insight from private sector, from public sector as well. So, as RP fashion, we are solutions makers. We want to swing the future. We're not just here to have chats. Chats are nice, dialogue is nice. We really want to be focused on legal moving change. I'd like to pose to all of you, what do we really mean by adjusting theory and practice?
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of us in the room. Thanks for bringing us together. In your introduction, you said it's how partners have partnership from different backgrounds to make sure that the energy transition that become a reality, which is a good idea, partnership. But I think sometimes what we do not probably spend enough time on to say, when we say we are partners, it's because we are doing work together. And we agreed that partnership is to actually achieve what. And I think we also need to start thinking about if we do a partnership with public officials, private officials, and partnership. What is that partnership to achieve? That's quite important. Now, on the just energy transition, as you said, you can get different answers if you ask different people. Generally, we agree to say it must be an energy transition. That does not mean a certain group of people waste. So there's just a general understanding what it means. It must be just in such a way that if we one day we have transited all this to that process must not make some people waste because of that transition. What is not clearly understood, or where there's no common understanding of how that happens, is now how do we make sure that a certain group of people are not getting the difference? That is probably where we need to discuss and agree to say what is it one we need to do, such that nobody is left in waste. But generally, I think that is what it is. But it's the means to that just transition that is always clearly understood, or there's no common understanding about it. For example, there will be people who says, let's just stop doing everything else and then let's go to do transition with renewable energy. And because everybody's going to capture on it, some people say, well, if you do that, you are going to leave some people behind. Therefore, let's do it differently. And I think that's where the discussion ought to be, to say how best to then make sure that there's no one left behind during the transition, depending on how we do it.
Just to unpack the just energy transition from the UN perspective and the ongoing negotiations, it's a transition that requires developing countries to phase down on renewable, on decarbonization, instead of phasing out based on developed countries. And this consistent with the UN framing of common and differentiated responsibilities, which calls for high emitting countries to lead the transition agenda towards early phase out of fossil fuel-based energy, as well as early closure dates of transition. And in addition, of course, for developed countries to support and provide substantial ongoing financial support to developing countries that have ambition to transition to net zero. And this is based on financial support that is concessional and high risk capital, so that developing countries are able to develop the economy in a pathway that is net zero. So that is a just energy transition to understand.
Very aligned to what the Honourable Minister just said at the start. So for me, and for us, Fortescue as a private company, the just transition is very much about fairness and making sure you don't leave anyone behind. I think historically, our company's been built on mining, our minerals and energy business. And I think for us going forward, it's not a small sport anymore. It's got to be, you've actually got to have that fairness across the whole spectrum that's involved in making some of these transitions to renewables going on, whether it's the community, whether it's the youth, whether it's the local government, whether it's the traditional government. There's a lot of people involved to make these projects successful. So we fully support the fact that it's got to be just right, so it's got to be fair. And I don't think you have that social license to operate, and nor should you if you don't do it that way. So for us, it's making sure that you've got to think about this very broadly, and you've got to do that very early. It's not something you can try and fix later. And so for us, it's about how do you map those stakeholders out, and there are important ones, and some of them are social, some are economic, some are financial. You know, there's a bunch, and you just need to make sure you're very aware of that, and then work with those groups early when you're along the journey.
And again, one, last one second. But is there a trade-off between keeping the plants and social goals?
No, wholeheartedly we don't believe in that. So once again, you know, as I said before, if you don't have that social license to operate, then you won't achieve what you're trying to do. So you don't get the climate goals. We go in with very singular thinking, then we'll fail. And so therefore, for us, it's very easy. You've got to have both. And that's my comment about not being schools before is that you can't. If you think there's a trade-off there, then you need to think again. Because once again, you won't get the longevity. When earlier happened today, it's about these are long life investments that we're making for the benefit of the country and the benefit of the climate. And so you need to think very broadly in doing that. And you need to expel put your own feet to the fire to make sure you achieve the climate goals, you achieve the economic goals, but also the social goals and the governance that goes with all those three become very important.
Thank you. And Honorable, if I can maybe just come back to you. So here is that there is a trade-off. For you to there isn't a trade-off. Can you highlight what are the opportunities, challenges, barriers, maybe as
Let me also just be controversial. Ed says there's no trade-off. What if I say there's a trade-off?
how to find a trade-off?
Let me say. People normally say trade-off is a bad thing. Trade-off means it's either that or that. I don't see trade-off being that in that respect. If we are thinking about the just energy transition, saying that those of us, for example, who have the African continent, for example, what we don't have is energy. We don't have energy at all. And therefore, the African people normally will say, also talk about the energy transition, they usually like, what are we transiting? We are not anywhere to transit. What we need is actually energy more than anything else. Such then that if we have the sources of energy that we have readily available today is fossil fuel, we are saying that we should be allowed to do that. We should be allowed to do that. Don't tell me that we don't use fossil fuel simply because there's energy transition. In such a way, I would rather say, look, allow me to do probably more of this, what I can quickly do and get energy. While I'm also thinking about how do I really start to deal with the energy transition. In some of our countries, for example, we are quite likely to not be able to do both at the same time, at the same level. But there are countries where you cannot do both at the same level. You need to face down while you're actually trying to do something. And therefore, if I look at trade-off in that perspective, you can argue this is a bit of a trade-off. Not to say I'm not doing it and not doing that, but I'm saying there will be one of those that we have to do more of, and maybe scale up the other and start going like this. So that's why I'm saying maybe you can't always say there's no trade-off whatsoever, but maybe there is something which you can call a trade-off. But I think the difficulties or the challenges we will have with the energy transition, number one is how do you fund the energy transition? You're talking about renewables, renewable energy. And it's something which we are all starting to embrace. I know private capital is quite there now, but But if you're talking about large-scale private sector funding, I still think there's still a bit of private sector capital being shy, a little bit shy, really going that direction. To the extent, I think, at the speed we might actually need to move for us to move this transition. So I'm thinking that the funding part will probably still be issues. How do we move to do that? And that's probably why, while we're here, for example, at COP28, or all the COP I have attended, there's always this about where will the funding come from? Where the developed countries has pledged to have $100 billion every year in renewable energy investment. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. And therefore, we need to probably figure out if it's not happening, why it's not happening. I think there's a desire that we need to do that, but it's not happening. And therefore, we need to probably find a better way. How do we encourage that investment that must take place? If it's going to come from public investment, are we able to do that from public investment? If it's from private sector investment, what are the incentives that need to be put in place to be able to incentivize private sector capital to make this $100 billion available for investment? So I'm really thinking that's probably going to be the biggest challenge I think we're going to have in terms of where do we get the required investment to make sure that the energy transition is going to move as quick as possible. The other challenge would well be regulations. As you do more and more of these things, as government, you realize that you probably set and standards and regulations that we put in place. And if we are not careful, then we have to have standards or regulations that are not in line with the required capital. Therefore, we might have a bit of a bottleneck when it comes to regulations. And therefore, for me, those are probably the two issues that start to challenge us, and we need to figure out how to go around.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Fortescue really prides itself on what it does from an ESG point of view, and I think it's one of those things where you look for a track record as to what that looks like. And so from our metals business, which is lots funding our energy transition, so iron ore, fourth largest iron ore producer in the world, been going 20 years, exports nearly 200 million tonnes of iron ore. So we know about logistics, we know about handling the market. But it's in the social part where I think we've done an amazing job. I'll just give you a few statistics just to keep in mind that. So from a First Nations or Aboriginal employment, we have our targets that we need to hit. And we have a workforce of greater than 12,000 staff, and it grows to nearly 20,000 with contractors. But our Aboriginal employment across the group sits at 10%. And I need to put this in context. The Aboriginal population of Australia is 3.8%. So we have 10% Indigenous employees for our books. And then what's even more impressive is that on actual site, from the country where Aboriginal people profile, that's about 15%. So it's actually a greater proportion out on the Aboriginal side. And another part that we're really proud of is we have a very strong local Aboriginal procurement program. So since 2011, we've awarded $4.5 billion Australian dollars. That's in US, about $3 billion US. That's gone to Aboriginal corporations. So for me, that's showing a real commitment to what we do. It's not just talk, it's not just a PowerPoint presentation. It's actually very real. And then we're starting that program now here in Africa. And so one of our most advanced projects is in Kenya. We're already doing an MOU with Strathmore University. One of the earlier conversations today about how you bring other people on this journey. So we're already doing an MOU with them about how we get more people into the working space, how do we get more people trained up for the future. So as these things grow, you need more local technicians, you need more stuff, so we're going to keep that off. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I was in the office, we had our first vacation student in the Kenya office. So coming in, so a local Kenyan lawyer coming in with vacation work for us for 12 months. And then now, with the project getting very close, we've also engaged 2 liaison officers that's what you're doing right now, to make sure that you're talking to the community, hearing their challenges, their concerns, and making sure we bring everyone on the journey. So for me, that just transition is not just about talk, it's about how you live it, how it's felt amongst not only the community but also amongst your own internal teams. And I think Fortescue's been doing a wonderful job. We've got the same, exact same work that we're doing here, on the continent, and particularly in what you're going forward. So for me, it's less about actions. The second part of your question is more around regulation and how does that bring on. It's absolutely key because it's a new industry and it's being developed quite quickly. So therefore, that regulatory environment becomes really important. I think it still probably needs to develop further and faster depending on where you are. But I think it's also natural from where we are in the life cycle of renewables and this sort of energy transition. But at the heart of it, that regulatory environment will become very key. The risk is that it takes too long because you still need the speed, but you need the right regulatory market, and then you need the right governance going forward to make sure that it's done.
What is regulation that helped you, or what are the gaps in the regulation that you see?
Not just the continent, it's probably just the whole industry, to be honest. And when you look at what they're trying to do, power generation is very remote. So whether it's wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, so I don't think that's not the concern. When you look at what we're trying to do from a green hydrogen and then a derivative being green ammonia is actually well known. And ammonia is also well known because fertilisers, there's actually ammonia shipped around the world, so that part's known. It's this little part that we'll call green hydrogen, which we're all learning about, and then how you operate that whole supply chain / value chain, and then how you make sure you've got the right regulation, the right safety, compliant regulatory is very important. So how do you make sure you've got all those being developed, where once again people are very clear on what that is, and then ultimately you're driving the right safety outcomes, the right social outcomes, the right economic outcomes for whatever country you may be.
Well, my answer was clear. Just because of
Other than that.
that's really what it is. But a quick one on the question you put to Benedict with regard to the employment. And I know where this is coming from. It's like, oh yeah, we are promoting as if this is not going to eliminate our unemployment problem that we have got in the country, and therefore, But for me, number one, I agree with him. It's like this. The biggest employment that will be created through some of this project like hydrogen will be not high tech. It will probably be your kind of vocational training skills that you're going to need. 10% of that you might need, and high end level skills that you need to have. So the notion that it's only maybe university graduates who will not be employed, it's not true. In fact, even if you understand, for example, in preparation for the skills development that we need through the vocation, the bursary that we have advertised, it's mostly vocational training because that's where the biggest number of people are going to be employed. That's what it is. But even if it was true that it's only high-level skills that you're going to have, it's not the reason why you shouldn't promote this. Because in itself, if this project is successful, it's going to be a catalyst for other things to happen around this project, and therefore, it's still something worthwhile for us to promote. And also going forward in the long run, unfortunately, as a country, we are not going to be competitive. We are not actually also making sure that we are going to produce products that need high-level skills. That's the only way you are going to sustain your competitiveness, globally. So we should not shy away from the fact that we need to upgrade ourselves as we go, and then make sure that we produce those high-level complex products which everybody needs. So, but I think it's creating employment. The risk they talk about is true. I mean, everything there's always a risk, but we need also then to really talk to each other to really understand what is the real risk. Sometimes it's really just a perceived risk. I perceive that there's a risk like that, but if we sit together and then we talk about, I'm perceiving this risk, and I explain to you, they explain to me, we may actually realize what we thought was a risk is not really much of a risk. Yes, there is a risk, but it's probably not as big as I thought it was. And therefore, that conversation, that understanding, that common understanding and partnership is very, very important for you to really know what's the real risk. Um, Now, I don't know what you asked me, but anyway.
Your closing remark.
My closing remark is really just I think really for us as in Namibia, I always say there hasn't been really, if there was any time where we need to be positive about our ability actually to address some of the challenges we have, that time has come now. It's really the opportunity that we are seeing, and therefore if we continue to collaborate and have this engagement with the stakeholders, I think we are going to make it. But of course, there are risks, but we need to move. We need to have, all of us need to become champions of one or the other things, or one of the other elements of what needs to be done, to make sure that we get them, by setting the goals of opportunities. And I think for the young people, there's definitely opportunities, but you need to follow this opportunity. You need to understand and also understand your role within this, what is happening, to make sure that actually you benefit from what's happening. And not to sit around hoping that things are going to happen, but also to make sure that you play a role such that you take advantage of it. But certainly, I think what you can say.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm hearing that there's a lot of collaboration that you have to educate players, pensioners, also capital, allow people to understand, help them understand the importance of different parts of the as well. And there's a lot of actually just about trust and mindset as well. That will go a long way. And we have all kinds of sessions on Monday with practice and with financing. So in closing, I'd like to thank you so much. Thank you all for thank you for joining our panel. Thank you so much.